How would you describe leadership in the roofing industry? What you see around you, like other companies, accountability?
We are in the business of developing good people. By proxy, a good roof is something that's installed by good people and it's managed by good humans and project managers.
What's your take on spending more than we make?
Are you fair and transparent? Do you pay the salespeople what you said you were going to pay, even if your mortgage is late?
You can tell when people post for attention and when people actually want to bring value.
Unfortunately, in the way that society is right now, they just want shit for free and they want it really fast and really cheap, and that's just not the way the world works.
I have a very special treat for you guys today. One of my favorite people in the roofing industry, David Taggart, the owner of A5 Roofing in San Antonio, Texas. This podcast is brought to you by ICO Roofing Corporation. Thank you, ICO, for helping us to do amazing podcasts with amazing guests. Enjoy the conversation. So, David, my first question for you is, educate myself. I'm a newbie in a hats game. You have the hats. I see guys wear them straight. For me personally, hat has to be curved. What's up with the straight hats? Where's the trend coming from?
Not all of them are flat billed hats. There's a time and a place for a flat billed hat, and there's a time and a place for a different hat.
Educate me. What's the difference? When it's appropriate to wear what?
For me, the flat bill hat is more of a personality thing. It's, it goes with certain, it all kind of depends on how I feel that day, right? There's Dave Taggart, the contractor, and then there's the roof poppy, right? The social media content creator. And those two people sometimes wear different hats.
Where did the roof poppy came from? Who came up with it? And give me that story.
When I started in door-to-door sales, I had a guy that I was working for. That was the real roof poppy was his Instagram handle at the time. And I started selling a lot of roofs, and he started kind of giving me a little credit on social media. And then as a joke, I changed my Instagram to be something relatively similar. And then he just kind of said, hey, listen, I'm going to give you the Instagram handle. And so I changed my Instagram to the roof poppy. And then I got some advice from a marketing guy that I needed to try and use that for some personal branding. And so that's where it came from.
I watched a few of your podcasts, few of your interviews. Seems to me that everybody has their topic, their one thing that they're better than others and would like to talk more of. Yours seems to me is leadership. Why leadership is so important? Why do you talk so much about leadership?
I talk about the things that I'm currently undergoing myself, right? The journeys and the skill sets that I'm trying to develop. And so as a business owner, I realize that we are in the business of developing good people. And so I think that by proxy, a good roof is something that's installed by good people and it's managed by good humans and project managers. So we really try to focus on building leaders inside of our organizations and not just employees.
Give me the story when you decided to lead people under your brand versus working for someone else.
It was right around the time that COVID vaccine mandates started coming out. If I'm going to tell the honest to God story, I was at a company. There were some things that I would rather have changed culturally. I wasn't capable of doing that because obviously I didn't own the company. And then my wife got a notice from her corporation that she worked for, which is a huge global corporation, that they were going to require vaccine mandates, and she was pregnant. And so we kind of decided, hey, listen, now's the time that we need to start a business in case we need something to fall back on, and so that's really, we didn't want to do the vaccines. We didn't want to go that route. So that's the choice that we made.
You just wanted the security, job security.
Absolutely.
How did it work out for you? How was your first year?
It worked out fantastic, man. We were lucky enough to have built a support network inside of the roofing industry before I ever owned a roofing company. And that single-handedly, the support that I was given in my first year just from other roofing contractors and other people inside of the industry, it contributed to a lot of the success that we had.
How would you describe leadership in the roofing industry? What you see around you, like other companies, accountability? Like in the roofing industry, are roofers accountable people for their mistakes, for how they run their businesses? We have pretty high failure rate. a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of starting overs, people starting companies, closing companies, do it again and again. How would you describe leadership in roofing?
It's difficult to put a description on that because there's a lot of things that come into play. I think a lot of people open a business or go into business and they don't understand that running a business is a skill set that you have to acquire. And you're either going to get it the hard way through a lot of failure and learning from your failures, or you're going to get it from being close enough in proximity to a business owner that you don't have to learn the hard way. And so that's really where the leadership, I think, the situation, the current culture of leadership in the roofing industry is good. I think by and large, there are a lot of people out here that will always do the right thing. The problem is, do they still do the right thing when nobody's looking? And that's, with their salespeople. Are you fair and transparent? Do you pay the salespeople what you said you were going to pay, even if your mortgage is late? Right? Are you willing to practice what you preach? That's a different subject.
100%. Can you describe your roofing market? Describe players. Is it how saturated it is? What kind of demand you guys have? What kind of supply? Like what kind of competition? How many companies there? Would you say you have too many or not enough? Describe the market around you.
I look at the market in San Antonio particularly like I would Major League Baseball. There's a couple of MLB teams in San Antonio, and there's a lot of D-League teams in San Antonio that are playing, right? And so when we're trying to separate ourselves from our direct competitors, we have to figure out what makes us different, even though we might be smaller. What is it that we can communicate better than a huge corporation can? And how do we get that message across to the consumer before they do? And so there's a lot of chucking of trucks in San Antonio because obviously Texas has a very low regulation on roofing contractors. Anybody in Texas can go get an LLC and be a roofing contractor overnight. And in San Antonio, it's almost twice as easy to get, right? And it really creates a problem where there's a lot of choices for homeowners in San Antonio and in Austin, Texas, as far as roofing contractors go. But the quality of those roofing contractors, that's the difference. That's the key separator between the major league players in town and the D-League players.
What's your take on licensing? Are you pro licensing? Do you think it should be harder to get a roofing license or become business owner in the roofing space? Or you're for freedom and less regulation?
Capitalism works underneath certain rules and guidelines, right? You can't let people abuse the system, and you also have to make sure that it's a level and fair playing field. And so in the roofing industry in Texas, what I think would benefit everybody is, number one, a bonding requirement, right? You have to put up some money, which means we know that you're financially responsible for your business and in your financial liability. Number two, I think licensing in the roofing industry should be predicated on an understanding of the code and how things are constructed, and a demonstration of, hey, this guy can answer all the questions correctly on the test. He could answer all the same questions on a customer's home. I think that it would be good to require something like that.
What's your take on deductibles? How big is the problem around you on deductibles? I know in Texas they're a little bit bigger than the rest of the country. In the Midwest, we still have 1,000, 2,000. In your area is probably higher. Do you still see a lot of roofers waiving deductibles? Is it a problem, or is it a made-up problem?
There are quite a few companies in San Antonio that will outright eat a deductible and go about that route of falsifying an invoice saying that they paid it. The deductible problem is really on the insurance carrier's part, and it doesn't really have anything to do with contractors, right? We don't have any choice in what a customer gets as a deductible. The insurance company is responsible for explaining to homeowners that their higher deductible is what comes with a lower yearly premium. Those things are offset. And they oftentimes don't explain you sacrifice coverage for a lower deductible, or you're going to get a higher deductible with higher coverage. And so these things aren't explained to homeowners. And then we have situations where the property values are jacked through the roof, but these people's level of income are not changing every year in relationship to their property value. So your deductibles based on an inflated property value, but you don't have the income to afford that high deductible. So I think there needs to be some work as far as the deductible issue goes, and a lot of it's going to be on the insurance carrier's part. But eating deductibles it's something that needs to be dealt with. I think if we're all going to have to play by the rules, then that's it.
Let's talk about your company does door knocking, correct?
Yes, sir.
What's your policy on door knocking on non-soliciting doors when you see the sign?
If I notice a no soliciting sign and I'm walking up to a door and it's like plain and obvious, I'll probably respect it, leave a door hanger, not knock on the door. I'm waving to the Ring doorbell. That thing starts recording as soon as it sees you 10 feet away from the front door. So I'm still delivering a message. I'm not ringing the doorbell. I'm not knocking on the door. Leave your note and turn around. If it's small and down in a plant somewhere by the floor of the front door, I may just look right past that thing and knock the door.
But generally, you respect it.
If the customer goes out of their way to make it painfully obvious that they don't want to be bothered, give them what they're asking for.
What do you think about this trend, a roofing trend? I see so many roofers take extra pride to knock the doors. I mean, they'll see the sign, they'll see, like, obviously someone like that morning put in, like, hey, we have 10 roofers knock, like, we don't need you, and they still like, yep, should knock, go knock for it. Like, what's you taking it? Why roofers are so stubborn and take the extra pride? Why do we have this go-getter attitude, over customer service, right? Like, we're not thinking what people want, we're like, but what I want, like my desire, my success is more important than that.
That's part of sales culture, right? Like, eating what you kill is just a part of sales culture. And sometimes it feels really good to take down a big buffalo, so I can't knock a sales guy that says, hey, I saw it, I saw the 10 cards, I knocked anyways. If you got the deal and you closed them, congratulations, man. It worked. It was flawless. If you didn't, maybe don't post that video on social media.
What do you do? What's your process looks like when you have homeowner who have insurance paperwork and he's asking you to provide an estimate? What are your ritual? What do you do? What's your process? What do you teach your sales guys?
I teach them to provide the customer with an estimate. If a customer says, hey, I've got my insurance paperwork, my roof was replaced, approved for a full replacement, we create an estimate. We'll shoot satellite imagery. We'll look at what's on the roof and we'll create an estimate for like, kind, and quality. If ours is less than what than what the insurance company's agreed to, I'm not changing my price to match the insurance company. I'm submitting my bill and I'm educating the insurance customer or the policyholder, hey, your insurance may only cover actually what's been incurred by you by my bill. So we need to make sure that they're going to release the right amount of depreciation for this, if there's any withheld. But always give them what they want. Most of the times, they're going to say the same thing. A customer tells 10 other roofers, send me an estimate. Only 2 of them are actually going to send the estimate. Why not be the second one?
How big is the vandalism problem in San Antonio? Do you guys see it, hear it? Do you see it on the roofs when you inspect them?
I have seen some where it's obvious somebody pushed something into the shingle and twisted it. You can see the fiberglass is kind of spinning when somebody does that. I've only seen it twice in 4 years. So it's not something, because Texas, we got 2 huge hail seasons, man. And manufacturing damage is not really, you see more manufactured wind damage than anything else. And that usually you see that in the middle of summer when people's pipelines start drying up.
Wow. What's your process working with insurance adjusters when you see obvious denials? Like, it's obvious damage, you recommend homeowner to file a claim, adjuster comes out and just denies it, not even opens their repair. What's your next step?
My next step is to see if we can submit photos and documents to the homeowner, so the homeowner can forward those to the desk adjuster and maybe have a reevaluation of this roof. We'll see if we can't bring out a supervisor or somebody else to come give you another look at that. If push come to shove, we can usually pull a lot of roof replacements into full roof replacements just with some Valley metal and a couple of metal accessories being paid for. A lot of the roofs in Texas don't last more than 12 years at best. So by about year 7 or 9, they're getting pretty brittle. They're not really repairable. Typically, we only need them to extend coverage to a part of the roofing system. We can get the rest taken care of.
How often do you work with the third parties in case of denials? Like we're talking about appraisals, we're talking about public adjusters, involving or lawyers involving someone else. Out of 100 claims, how often do you bring third party? And who is your third parties?
Out of 100, probably one. Out of 100. I'd say less than. And 400 and some odd, almost 500 roofs, we've probably involved a public adjuster on 2 that I can think of. There's a time and a place for a PA, and then there's a time and a place for a contractor to be a professional contractor and know how to communicate things. I don't always think the PA is the most obvious choice, or let me rephrase. I don't think that the PA is the right choice in every situation, but in situations where the policy language is what the carrier is relying on in their decision-making process, then yes, a PA is required. If it's construction methodology, we don't need a PA for that.
How often do you supplement the job? Do you supplement every claim?
About 85% of every job we come through, we need to supplement. There's a lot of things that we see that are lumped together in pricing, like starter, hip, and ridge, and all these other things. Depending on who wrote the estimate, they could be giving you a better deal and on the price per square foot with the way they wrote it up. So not every roof needs to be supplemented. Mostly we find ourselves supplementing for the additional things that need to be done inside of an already approved scope, like flashing manipulation or replacements.
How do you explain supplementing to the homeowner without sounding greedy?
Right. Well, insurance adjusters are not construction professionals. They're glorified accountants. So they're really good at putting numbers into a software that cranks out another number. They're not construction professionals. So they don't understand that to remove part A, you also need to remove and replace part B, C, and D. A construction professional understands that. So when we have a supplement, it's because we need them to pay for B, C, and D, and they haven't yet. But in order to complete part A, we need to do part B, C, and D as well. We'll send that off to the insurance company. They'll argue with us about the price, and then we'll finally agree on it.
Who would you say your competition is? If you lose the job, who you usually lose the jobs to?
In San Antonio, if I lose a job to somebody in the big competition in San Antonio is obviously Rhino Roofers is a huge company. Holden's very big out here. Let's see. Heritage Roofing and Construction has a lot of people out here. Locally, there's some companies in New Braunfels and in and around San Antonio, some good players that do a lot of door knocking. We don't end up losing jobs to those big guys because I know what kind of companies those are and the people that are managing the sales departments, and I know what kind of playing field they're playing on, and we play on a pretty even playing field. We usually lose jobs. When we do, we lose it to somebody who's much cheaper, that's got a Vistaprint sticker on the side of their truck. And those are customers that we're okay with losing, to be honest with you.
I want to talk about something controversial now. So we have this big trend in our society where people want to work less. And it used to be, 5 days a week, now 4 days a week. Now I see people demanding work 3 days a week. In our businesses as a sales professional, sales guys, like what's the requirement? How do you motivate people to work more? What do you think man should work? What kind of hours you put in, your people put in to be successful? Can you be successful working 3 days a week?
That would be a very hard, rough 3 days, man. If you were going to try to accomplish everything that needed to be accomplished to get you to what your life really wanted to be, and you said, I'm only going to do it for 3 days, you're going to end up sleeping like 45 minutes a night, and that's it. Because it's just impossible. It's impossible to shortcut or to think that a shortcut exists for success like that. You look at every person that's ever created anything worth talking about, and they spent nights upon nights upon nights up thinking about it, focusing on it, dreaming about it, working on it, putting in the time, sweat, and equity. And so I don't expect my guys to work a certain number of hours. I expect things to get done in a certain amount of time. And so whether it takes you 1 hour or 15 hours, the effort has to be there, the intensity has to be there, and you have to be able to accomplish things. And that's there, you can't put a time period on that. Say a guy works 40 hours a week and he actually goes to work for 8 hours a day when he's standing around for 6.5 of them. He was at work for 8 hours a day, but he was only actively working with his hands for 2 hours a day. That doesn't mean anything. If you go to work for 8 hours and you bust your ass for 8 hours, could you imagine how much closer you would actually be to your goal if you really applied yourself over all 8 hours? Your boss would probably, if you were a mechanic, your boss would promote you the next week.
But do you see it in your area? Do you see it in San Antonio? You know what I'm talking about, right? When people want to work,
we see a lot of issues with the younger generation thinking that there's an easier way to do things besides like the hard work. Especially with the roofing industry and the way that things are going with AI and automations and CRMs, it's really easy to sell a roof. And anybody can become an affiliate marketer for a roofing company and sell roofs in a local market just using social media. So there's really not a whole lot of work that's required, but it takes a lot of effort to build up the ability to have the ability to sell a roof on social media, or to learn how to overcome objections, or to learn how to deal with issues and systems in the roofing. So there's no possible way that you could shortcut it that much. And people, unfortunately, in the way that society is right now, they just want shit for free and they want it really fast and really cheap. And that's just not the way the world works.
How fast can someone learn how to sell roofs and make really good money at roofing sales?
It depends on how smart they are, how intelligent they are, right? You can get a guy with, potatoes for brains, and it would take him 9 months to figure out how to overcome an objection. But you get a guy that has the ability to think outside of the box and to present different ideas in his head and to problem solve, he could probably figure it out within a couple of weeks, 2 or 3, easy.
Bradley has the clip with advice on his channel. He said that he advised people to buy cars they cannot afford, like buy expensive shit, because you're gonna level up to it. Like if you buy a car and you have $2,000 payment, now you're like, oh, what do I do? And he said, for your employees, have your employees buy expensive shit. They'll never quit on you because they have to work hard.
Because they'll be in debt for the rest of their life.
I know, right? But I do see it. I do see that trend in the roofing industry. I see, the boss live beyond his means. Now his sales guys do the same thing. Everybody keep accumulating debt. What's your take on it? What's your take on spending more than we make? And, in the roofing business is huge because we're spending homeowners money and now we're running Ponzi scheme businesses and nobody wants to talk about it.
That's a problem with cash-based accounting, right? And again, business owners opening up businesses and not understanding that it is an entirely different skill set. And so these guys will open the business, they'll go get $30,000 in cash, they'll pay some of their bills, and they'll go out and pay a bunch of labor and material in another couple of days, and then chase a depreciation check because their cell phone bills due. That's the problem with cash-based accounting. If you are not fiscally responsible, right? If you can't properly allocate things and get jobs ordered and processed and built in a certain amount of time, you mess up your accounts receivable. The problem with sales culture, with people making commissions that are being taught by people that are living beyond their means, you can teach somebody how to go make $100,000 in commissions in 1 year in roofing sales, and it's an easy thing to do. We had a mechanic that made $116,000 paid commissions in 9 months at our company, knew nothing about roofing or construction on day one, zero. But the difference is, what are these companies doing to teach these salespeople about their tax liability? What are they doing to teach them, hey, listen, you made $116,000. We want to introduce you to a guy that helps us with our real estate stuff. I want to talk to you about putting some of that stuff into real estate and making residual income instead of spending it on TVs and fucking jet skis. Like, don't do that.
Or drugs.
That's not the thing you need to be doing at 27 with 6 figures. Okay. You need to be more responsible. And there's a couple of companies that are actually doing this, and I really appreciate that. But not a lot of the companies that are creating successful salespeople are turning around and teaching them how to be fiscally responsible.
So what kind of accounting do you do? How do you protect your company from tapping into that?
Well, I'm graciously, I am blessed enough to have a rock star of a wife for a CFO. My wife, Jacqueline, is a electrical engineer, a licensed electrical engineer. She works for a huge global corporation managing construction projects, coincidentally, that are in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And so in her job, her entire job is based on moving the numbers around and accounting and balancing and budgets and material orders and requisitions and change orders. And so her whole operation in A5 roofing is based on positive cash flow, from our collecting procedures to filing lien notices with homeowners in a certain amount of time. Everything that we do on the back end is designed for us to get the money that's not ours out of the bank account as quick as possible, and the money that is ours back into it as soon as possible.
Talk to me about your work-life balance. You have 3 kids, your wife is in business, you're in business. How much do you actually work? Is it 24/7, 365? Do you ever put your phone down?
Yeah, absolutely. The unpopular opinion, work and life, my work and my life don't work in opposition to each other. So it's not like a work-life balance thing where we have to figure out, is it time to work? Is it time to life? I work so I can enjoy my life. So the more time I put into work, the more time I have to enjoy my life. Those two are not in opposition to each other. And when it's time to work, it's time to work. It doesn't matter if you can accomplish everything in 5 hours, great. If it takes you 22 and a half hours in that day, then that's what it takes, right? So there's this fantasy that you're going to have a perfect balance of busting your ass every day to get to where you want to go. And this happy-go-lucky, I drank my tea by the pool and watched the deer eat the grass this morning. Sometimes you're going to have to skip the deer and the tea, man. And you just have to take your ass to work real quick. So it's hard. It's hard to say that there's a right way to balance those two, because I don't think you can. I think you just handle shit that comes up when it's time to handle it.
Do you work Saturdays?
I work Sundays too if I have to. If my phone rings, if a customer calls me, if there's a problem in the middle of the night, if one of my guys gets in a wreck at 7 p.m. on a Sunday, and whether he's in my company truck or not, I'm at work. That's my guy. I want to know. So yeah, we work Saturdays, we work Sundays, we work on, I took phone calls on Christmas Eve.
What's your, how do you manage your phone though? Like you still have to have, time off. Like, do you have a rule for your cell phone? When you come home, is there a time where you don't do screen time? Like what's quality time with your wife or kids? Do you have any rules for that?
We don't have rules for like, okay, when the dinner table, everybody put their phone away. Nobody really brings their phones to the table unless it's like, my wife's eating with my son and the other kids are in the bath. And, it's not like a family thing, because we don't always get to sit down, all 5 of us at the same time, and eat dinner, right? Sometimes it comes in like shifts. We get 3 here and 2 people here. I think the general rule of thumb for us has always been, when we know we're spending time, my wife and I, when it's time for us to spend some time together, we just send them to voicemail. I can call them back in 20 minutes, but right now I'm actually spending time with my daughters or my son playing on the floor. I'll let my customers go to voicemail, but I'm absolutely going to call them back in about 20 minutes.
I'm going to ask your wife the same question and see if the answer is different.
Oh, she'll tell you. She'll tell you, my phone's never far from me, bro. It's never far from me, 100%. But it's not always on.
No, usually it's wives who demand more time, put your phone away, and they need more of us, more attention than we do. But we're like, I'm the same way. I'm workaholic. My phone is always here. Yeah. Like, you got to do what you got to do. Like, that's your job. That's the business these days. Do you have exit strategy?
I don't have an exit strategy. No, I have a perpetual growth strategy, and I don't know if there's going to be an exit. I'm going to die one day. That's how I'll exit the business for sure. Right. As far as, selling it or giving it to my family, I don't know if I want this life for my daughter or my son. I don't know if I want them to be an owner of a roofing company, if I'm going to be honest with you. I'd like to provide them. That's my exit strategy, is to give everything that I have here to my family and my children so that they can take it and say, hey, do we want to keep doing this, or do we want to take this money and do something else with it, build another business? Dad showed us what to do.
Love it.
right? That's my exit strategy. I don't really have any plans to quit.
How long are you planning to be in the roofing industry? And do you have any other industries you would look into or attractive to you? I see a lot of guys, they'll do roofing for 5-10 years, build a big company, and then start investing real estate or, I don't know, do other stuff. Do you have anything else that attracts you?
Yeah, I don't think roofing for a majority. I'm going to speak for a majority of people. I don't think anybody wants to get into roofing for the rest of their life, right? Definitely on the labor side, definitely on the sales side, definitely on the management side. Nobody wants to do those things forever. And I think that you get to a certain point in being an entrepreneur where it's time for you to do something different, just like you go to college and you have a different a professor every semester, right? You need to learn different things. You can get really good at running a roofing company and scaling a roofing company, but what else are you doing with that? I feel like for me, roofing is a vehicle, and we're going to use this vehicle to accomplish a lot of different things. But I don't think that roofing specifically is the only plan forever.
Love it. Love it. Well, man, I didn't want a long podcast. I know we're gonna talk again. You're one of my favorite people. I know I don't say it much. Honestly, I follow probably 3 accounts on a regular basis
Really?
because there's a lot of people who put content, but not a lot of good. You're one of those people who I think you're very selective what you post, and you have interesting takes. You can tell when people post for attention and when people actually want to bring value. Like for me, every time I turn on camera, I want to make sure I bring value. If I don't have something
Right.
to say, I'm okay not publishing for 5 days. And I do post a lot, but usually when I post, there's a script, there's a thought, I want to share.
Yeah.
And that's what I see from you. A few other guys in the industry, they're just, they care for the audience, they care for the message. I say, like, actually wrote down, I was meditating on it yesterday, that not every influencer is a leader, but every leader is influencer. Some people,
Yeah.
they're influencers, but they're not leading people nowhere. They're just milking their crowds and they're just getting something in return. It's me,
Mm.
what, right? And some people are just leaders, and they know they're influencing others, but they intentionally do it. And I think you're the leader influencer, and we don't have many of those. So thank you for
Man,
being a good
I
guy.
appreciate that.